In 1976, a bizarre, experimental documentary film was released in theatres, only for its run to be cancelled and the film pulled from those very same theatres just 2 weeks after its release. The film, named All This and World War II, was indeed an experiment, a mashup of sorts, using both newsreel footage and movie clips to tell a rough timeline of the Second World War, accompanied throughout by the songs of no other than the Beatles, though these would be new recordings, all performed by big-name artists, with some recorded specifically for the film. The soundtrack to the film found its way to an official release, though the film itself would never be granted the same fate. It was never released on home video, and, besides a few random appearances on late-night television, became lost in time, now regarded as a cult film. Unofficial copies of the documentary have found their way into people's collections throughout the years, by recording it at the time of one of its few TV air dates, or more recently, by searching online. The film's idea was dreamt up by Russ Regan, an American record executive and president of both Universal City Records and 20th Century Records. In an article posted on the Mojo Music website, Regan is quoted as saying, "I dreamt of Hitler at home, as Fool on the Hill played. I heard Michelle being performed as the Americans liberated Paris, and Here Comes the Sun as the Japanese planes left their aircraft carrier for Pearl Harbor." He told Ear Candy magazine in 2005, "I woke up in the middle of the night, wrote these different things down, and we made sort of a documentary movie about World War II, with the Beatles music." Regan was aided in his project by Lou Reisner, the man who signed David Bowie to Mercury Records, who began to assemble the ambitious soundtrack for the film. Artists appearing on the record would include Elton John, the Bee Gees, Leo Sayer, Brian Ferry, Rod Stewart, Jeff Lynne, Peter Gabriel and Tina Turner, among others. Meanwhile, the process of mixing and matching newsreel footage with clips from movies was also underway. Russ Regan's dream was growing nearer to fruition. Ahead of the film's release in November 1976, first came the four-sided album soundtrack, with Lennon and McCartney credited, and featuring the complete list of artists and songs that fill the documentary. The album itself did relatively well, reaching number 23 in the UK album chart. Then, it came time for the release of the film itself, and the reception wasn't pretty. The film flopped, so much so that Fox withdrew it from cinemas just 2 weeks after its release. With no narration, other than the dialogue from the various movie scenes it included, the film's attempt to tell its story through visuals with only the songs of the Beatles for accompanying audio ultimately fell flat with audiences. An article and review on the Reveal website takes a harsh view of the film, stating, "If there are meaningful, or at least not appallingly literally minded connections to be made between World War II and the music of the Beatles, All This and World War II never finds them." A Bee Gees cover of Golden Slumbers accompanies footage of Londoners sleeping in the underground during the Blitz. Leo Sayer performs Let It Be, to images of American Nazi collaborators being arrested, and, in an iffy bit of parallelism, Japanese Americans being shipped to internment camps. As the tide of the war turns, Status Quo performs Getting Better. Hitler makes several more appearances. Early in the film he's accompanied by Helen Reddy's Fool on the Hill. In its later moments, Rod Stewart's version of Get Back becomes a taunt as his fortunes turn. Some of the music is quite good. I don't think I've heard Brian Ferry's She's Leaving Home or Peter Gabriel's Strawberry Fields Forever anywhere else. They don't come close to redeeming the movie, however. When the film arrived at Pearl Harbor, I found myself thinking, oh no, there's a lot of war left to cover. Also quoted is Desmond Ryan of the Philadelphia Inquirer's interview at the time of the film's release, saying, "A juxtaposition of the century's most traumatic experience with the Beatles tunes that leave the impression of someone playing a kazoo at Beethoven's funeral. The article on the Reveal website goes on to say, though the film, which is bloodless and largely avoids any combat scenes apart from aerial dogfights, was rated G, its other potential audience seemed to be the midnight movie crowd who could gaze on the juxtaposition of Lennon and McCartney and Roosevelt and Churchill with stoned wonder. They didn't turn out either. In some ways, the weirdest thing about this film is that the project filled with songs from the most popular band of the 20th century, one that featured John Lennon and Paul McCartney, could leave such a tiny footprint. But, despite so many indicators to the contrary, it does exist, and take it from me, that's all you need to know. Russ Regan's dream had come to life, but its flame was over in a flicker. The film did not set the world alight, nor did it peter out gracefully from cinema screens. It simply vanished, into an obscurity that would almost have it nearly completely forgotten today, if not perhaps for the success of its soundtrack album, and those few late-night spots on television that led to its preservation through bootleg copies. It is a bizarre and rare thing indeed that a soundtrack should prove more popular than the film itself. Still, Regan fought back at the film's failure, saying, "We didn't make the film for the critics. Box office was good for the first week and down the second, but it didn't lose any money. It didn't cost more than around $650,000 to make. I didn't expect it to be Jaws." Lou Reisner, on the other hand, is stated to have not taken the film's cancellation well, that he put his whole heart into the film and was devastated at its reception. Just a few months later, Reisner died from cancer, aged 43. Before his death, he said of the film, "It would have been easy to make the music of the era and dub it to match the action on screen. But we'd have lost the young audience. We want all the age groups to see this picture because we think it makes a statement about the absurdity of war. It is the definitive anti-war film." As stated earlier, all this and World War II has inevitably made its way online, becoming more easily accessible to those who wish to seek it out, after a period of pre-internet when a copy of the film became almost a lost gem among the bootleg community. In some ways, I think it's a good thing, that being that the film still lives on. Russ Regan passed away in May 2018, aged 89, and though he is gone, his dream, the one that took flight only briefly in that month of November 1976, has taken flight once more and can still be found today by those who wish to find it.